I saw this dresser on Facebook Marketplace and I knew I could bring it back to life. Take out the top 3 drawers. Instead of buying new handles, why don't I just refinish those also? First step though is to get them on a piece of cardboard so I can spray them, and also it's best to use 2 to 3 small coats instead of one thick one because then it won't run. It's time to clean up the drawers and the cabinet itself, and I need to put on some primer. This is important. Primer gives the paint something to adhere to. That way the paint doesn't peel off later. I'm going to take the drawers, put on a nice coat of paint with a foam roller, and then I'm also going to do it to the cabinet itself, on the inside and the outside. While that's drying, it's time to build the 3 shelves that I need. So I had some scrap plywood hanging around the house, and I cut those up. The plywood's a little thick for my taste, but it's going to work great. Once I get the shelves installed, then I'm going to go ahead and paint the cabinet itself and use a nice white cabinet paint. 2 or 3 coats will do the job. But when it comes to the drawer, I'm going to use a gray cabinet paint. I want it to stand out and give it a two-tone a little bit. So I'm going to get that painted also. This one only took 2 coats. Now here's the key to this whole project. I'm going to build some new doors for the cabinet itself. Using a 1x3, I'm going to cut those to pieces right there, make 2 of them, and put them together. I'm also going to mark where I'm going to join the pieces. I'm going to use my nifty Craig jig. I love this tool. It's great. I can drill it, and it's going to give me some hidden screws when I use it. Watch this. After it's drilled, that's where the screws go. Gives it a nice professional look. I'm going to put some glue on the edges, put those together, and I can either clamp them, but watch this. When I put them together, put some screws in there, and then I join them together with those screws. You can also stick some wood dowels in there to hide the pieces. Now these doors are also going to get the gray paint, so I'm going to get those painted. Once they're dry, on the back side of these doors, I'm going to put some chicken wire. I'm going to use my pneumatic stapler to put them together. Once I do that, I can put it all the way around, and it's going to look really good, but we want to make sure that it is secured. I'm going to go all the way around the edges and make sure it's nice and tight. Now I'm going to take the handle that I painted and I'm going to install that right there. And it's starting to look really good. The same for the drawers. Doesn't that look a lot better how it's all painted? I'm going to get this installed, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I got to put the hinges on the doors. These are just small 1.5 inch size hinges. They're working perfect. Put those in. Take the cabinet inside, and then I'm going to install the doors straight on there. Do you remember what that cabinet used to look like? Well, here it is, and look at that cotton bale. I love that little decor right there. It's great to turn this into a farmhouse kitchen pantry. I love how it turned out, especially with the white and the gray. I hope this inspired you to upcycle your own furniture whenever you get a chance, or take those marketplace flips and make them into a work of art. Thanks for watching Home Talk.
If you are in the market for a couple of side tables or nightstands, consider an old vintage vanity instead. First up, I need to take it apart. I'm removing all the drawers, then studying how the vanity is built. Since this vanity is nailed together, I'm wedging a pry bar between the backboard and vanity, then hitting it with a rubber mallet to pull the boards apart. Now I'm checking where all the nails and joins are and removing whatever nails I can with a nail remover tool. However, for the most part, the crowbars, lots of pounding, and finally pulling apart the pieces by hand did the trick. Now I'm removing all the knobs from the drawers and attaching the original screws into the back so they don't get lost. I'm placing all the drawers onto some butcher paper with the varnished sides facing up along with the vanity. To strip off the varnish, I'm using a product called QCS by Stripwell, which is a non-toxic remover. I'm spraying the remover on all the varnished tops of the vanity and drawer tops, then allowing the product to sit for about 10 minutes. Using a putty knife, I'm scraping off the varnish. Most of the pieces needed 2 passes for everything. Now using a surface cleanser, I'm spraying it wherever the varnish was removed, then wiping the furniture clean with a rag. Next up is repairing the sides. Using an orbital sander, I'm sanding over the damaged areas of the nightstands, plus also scuff sanding the rest of the sides to prepare them for the next step. I'm using a putty knife to apply wood filler to smooth out any indents, nooks, and crannies. Some of the holes were very deep, so they required 2 coats with drying time in between. After several days of drying time, I'm sanding the putty smooth, then following up with an orbital sander to areas that needed a little extra work. Now I'm removing all the sanding dust using a tack cloth. Choosing a deep and beautiful paint color called Cast Iron by Fusion Mineral Paint, I'm painting all the small trim work with a smaller artist's brush. Since the sides are smooth and large, I'm choosing to paint them using a high-quality Stahlmeister velour roller I pick up through Fusion Mineral Paint to achieve a flawless finish with no brush strokes. I'm rolling on the paint with long, even strokes with an attempt to always work against a wet paint edge. What works best is to roll on all the paint, then slowly roll over it again from end to end with no stops in between to achieve the smoothest finish possible. To paint the drawer pulls, I'm using the screws to hold the knobs while I paint, then setting them down on egg cartons to dry. Now that the paint has set, I'm removing the painter's tape to allow the piece to completely dry. To protect the fronts of the drawers and the tops of the nightstands, I'm using Stain and Finishing Oil in Natural by Fusion Mineral Paint. This is a very easy wipe-on, wipe-off product to work with, and the durability it offers is floor quality. I'm brushing on the Stain and Finishing Oil until my chosen surface is completely covered, allowing it to sit for a few minutes, then wiping the product back off again with a clean lint-free rag. I allow this product to dry overnight. Once the paint has cured for about 30 days, I'll also be adding a coat of natural Stain and Finishing Oil on that as well for added furniture durability. And the final result are two absolutely stunning high-quality nightstands or side tables that are customized to suit my home. The tone of wood now looks so fresh and rich and feels as smooth as silk, which really pops against the decadent deep tone of cast iron, making this a gorgeous and timeless combination.
I wrapped an iron in tinfoil for this brilliant furniture hack. I grabbed a side table from the thrift store and took it apart. I sanded it, wiped it clean, primed and painted. I painted 2 coats and then sanded and wiped clean between each coat. I added a clear top finish and then I put it all back together. I wrapped my iron in tinfoil to keep it clean and then I turned it on. Once it was heated, I ironed wood edge banding to the edges. I left a bit overhanging on either side and then I trimmed it with scissors. When all the edges were complete, I gently sanded the top edge and filed the corners to ensure a smooth finish.
I picked up this old 2-piece headboard for free on Facebook Marketplace, and it's time to give it some life. First thing though, I need to cut it to size. This is the front part, and I'm going to cut it down just to the top of that flat board. I need to do this to both sides. Using a Sawzall is the easiest way to do it. Once I get it all cut, then I'm going to go to the bigger part, the back side of the headboard, and I'm going to cut it down to size also, but I want to cut these little knobs off the top because I'm going to reuse them. Once I get that first part cut on the larger headboard, I'm going to sand it down, make it nice, put some glue, and then I'm going to add those little spinny knobs that I put on there. I want to make sure that the glue adheres, so I pop it up to make sure it looks good, and then I'm going to take my brad nails, just cover it in a few places, and make sure it's secure. Next, I need to put those 2 headboards together. I'm going to grab a 2x4 for that. I'm going to cut these down to about 13.5 inches, and then I need to put some pilot holes. I don't want to split the wood when I put the screws in, and pilot holes are key. Once I get those screws set, ready to go, then I'm going to take that 2x4 and I'm going to put it in place, making sure that it's flush with the top. And then I'm going to take and alternate between the screws so I don't make it pop out and put those screws in. Next, once the board's all together, it's time to prime. As you can see, this headboard has a lot of grooves on it. So instead of taking a brush or a roller, I'm going to use some spray paint. And yes, primer is gray. There's 2 ways to apply it to a large area. You can go back and forth or do a circle motion. I prefer the circles, it covers really nice. I'm going to let that dry for about an hour, and then it's time to put the paint on. I use a nice quality paint, and again, because of all the grooves, it's time to spray it. That way I can get it covered real nice and get about 2 to 3 coats on there. I'm going to get every single area, and then it's time to turn my attention to the bench. I'm going to use some 1x6s for this. If I put 3 of them together, it's going to make the perfect width. But that back one needs some notches cut out. I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut that, sand it up to make it nice and smooth with the edges, and then the magic here is wood glue. Wood glue, if you put it down, it's going to put to all the sides, and it'll make sure it's nice and strong. Once that glue's down, I'm going to be very careful. Put that first back piece in with the notches, and then I'm going to use my brad gun to put it in place. Just 2 nails to hold it down until the glue sets up. Next, it's time to put the last 2 pieces in, lay out all the glue, put the pieces down very carefully, and again, turn back to the brad nail and put those in. Just takes a few. Then I'm going to turn to some gel stain. Now, this stain is going on really thick, but don't worry. You spread it out nice and even, and it's going to look really good with that grain. And the secret is take a rag and take off all the excess stain. Too much, it's going to get blotchy. Once we get all of that excess stain out, guess what? It's time to put it in place. And look at this. I absolutely love it. So remember, we don't throw anything away when we can upcycle it. I hope this inspired you to make your own headboard to bench decor.
If you come across a standard dresser with drawers that's seen better days, you won't recognize it after this fabulous flip idea. I'm removing all the drawers from the dresser since they won't be needed. However, I will be using 2 drawer pulls. All the drawer brackets from the inside of the dresser are being removed. The entire dresser is getting a scuff sand all over, then dusted off with a tack cloth. To prepare for painting, I'm placing 2 pieces of wood and paper underneath the dresser. Choosing a paint color called Cast Iron by Fusion Mineral Paint, I'm first edging all the corners with a smaller paintbrush, then rolling the rest of the paint on all sides of the dresser. I like using a velour roller for smooth surfaces to alleviate brush strokes. I'm now measuring slightly larger than the width and height of all the dresser drawer cutouts, then cutting 4 shorter and 4 longer pieces of lumber to create 2 door frames. Dry fitting the boards into rectangles, I'm adjusting a Craig jig pocket hole maker to the thickness of the boards I'm using, which is 3/4 of an inch. I want to assemble the board, so I'm screwing into the side of the wood grain for added strength. Choosing some simple butt hinges, I'm using a ruler to help position 2 hinges on the edges of each door. Holding the hinge in place, I'm penciling in the screw placements, then pre-drilling small holes and assembling with screws. After ironing some burlap sandbags, I'm positioning them onto a work table, then placing the door frames on top. With a piece of chalk, I'm tracing the inside of the doors onto the burlap. Removing the doors, I'm now positioning various stencils within the chalked area, then replacing the door frames to get a feel for the final design. To protect the work surface, I'm slipping some waterproof bags underneath the burlap. After taping the stencils in place on the burlap, I'm stenciling the images using cast iron for a rustic coffee bean bag look. A mix of coffee and grain sack styled stencils from Funky Junk's Old Sign Stencils are being arranged in random placements until both burlap panels are completed. After the stenciling is dry, I'm placing the door frames back on the stencil burlap, then tracing the outside of each door panel with chalk, cutting along the lines. Flipping the door frames good side down, I'm positioning the burlap panels good side down on the backs of the frames, then attaching them together using a staple gun. The edges of all the burlap is being trimmed just outside the staples. Working with the inside dresser configurations, I found I could simply slip in some cut boards to create simple shelves that didn't even need to be permanently attached. After positioning the doors to be exactly in the middle of the dresser, I'm installing the door hinges with screws. And the end result is a rustic cabinet perfectly styled into a charming coffee station. The mix of raw wood, black, and burlap just adds the perfect coffee shop vibe while adding warmth and interest to any space. The stenciled coffee bean bag images really hone into this theme, which of course can be switched out to any other design you wish. And to complete the look, added mug hooks and all the coffee essentials are ready for coffee time duty.
You won't believe what I did with this $10 garage sale find. I grabbed this old wood filing cabinet at a garage sale, then I cut the cabinet down so it was a bit shorter. Then I cut some scrap MDF boards and I rounded the ends and I mitered the corners at 45 degrees and I attached it to the top using wood glue and brad nails. I filled all the holes with wood glue and let it dry. Then I sanded everything down and I gave it a really good wipe down with a damp rag, cleaned it all, and applied a spray can primer. This primer is gray because it's for darker paints. Once that was dry, I gave everything a sand with 220 grit sanding block. I wiped it all clean again and applied denim colored spray paint. Next, I applied antique rub and buff to the old hardware and reattached it once dry. I lined the drawer with some scrap wallpaper and I also cut a piece of pine shelving and applied 2 coats of a clear finish and attached it to the new base that I made. And that is how I turned a $10 filing cabinet into a mini book nook. perfect for kids.
While browsing at my local thrift store, I came across these packs of caster wheels. I have this old chair that's been kicking around in my garage, and we are going to cut off the back of the chair. With my chair back off, I took the chair and I flipped it over onto the seat. This is where we're going to add in our caster wheels from the thrift store. So I took a 1/2-inch spade bit and I just drilled down into the top of each leg. And then my caster wheel fit perfectly nice and snug into these 1/2-inch holes. Next, I'm going to add a laundry basket to the top. So I got this laundry basket at my local home goods store, and I'm just going to go ahead and use a zip tie, and I'm going to secure it onto the chair. And with the project complete, I have a rolling standing laundry basket cart. And this is so convenient for me. Not have to bend over and pull the clothes out of the dryer and bend over a laundry basket. I just love how easy this project was, and it's just functional farmhouse pretty.
This weekend project starts with this old dresser I picked up at a garage sale, and it's been sitting in my garage. But first thing I need to do is take those drawers out. I want to get that hardware off because it's old and I got something better planned for it. Next, I want to use this board because I need to trim the top of the dresser in order to get nice smooth edges because I plan on redoing it. All I have to do is set this guide up and use it along my saw to set it up and get a nice cut edge. I want to do that on the front edge and both sides. Once I get that cut off, I can go ahead and clean it up, blow all the dust off. I'm going to set it up on some sawhorses and start painting it. I want to go with a nice black color. It's going to be really dark, and I put a lot of paint on there. The best way to do is get some nice quality cabinet paint. Once I do that, it's definitely going to take 2 coats, but I want to get sure I get all of the inside, outside, and all those little grooves, so I had to take a little chip brush and just get them all marked off. Once that's dried up, I'm going to cut some 1x6 boards, 62.5 inches long, because I'm going to make a new tabletop. All I need is 3 of these. Those will go across the whole top. But I noticed right in the middle of the dresser, the top sags a little bit, so I need a shim in there. The best thing to do is take some wood glue, put it all the way around, and I'm going to take some 1/4-inch board, and I'm going to set that down there. I want the glue to set up really nice, but I'm also going to use some brad nails to hold it in place. That glue is going to make it solid and give something good for my boards to sit on. I also need to glue the edges. I'm going to use that chip brush that I used earlier and smear all of that wood glue on the sides. Once I do that, I'm going to start with the first board, set it close to the front, right where I need it, and nail it with the brad nails right on the middle and the ends. I'm going to do it again, like I said, with 3 boards. Once I get that top in, I'm going to put a trim piece on the side with some 1x2s. Cut them with the 45-degree miter, and then it's time for sanding. I'm going to get all the sanding done. I'm going to start with some 80 grit, and then I'll move up to 220 and give it a nice smooth look. Once that's all done, I want to make sure that I blow it all off, get all that sawdust because I'm going to stain it. So once all the dust is gone, I'm going to choose my favorite color, which is pecan, and I'm going to start putting it on. Now, I don't use a brush. I use a towel because I feel like I can get some more penetration on the wood grain with it. Want to keep going nice and smooth. Don't stop because you don't want it drying on you. If you have any excess stain, you just go ahead and remove that. Once I get all that stained up, I'm going to let it dry for a couple hours, and then I'm going to put some clear polyurethane on. Now, this poly goes on, and it looks milky, but don't worry. Once it dries, it's going to look nice clear, and it's going to give it a nice professional finish. Now, this is time for it to get ready for the drawers, and here's that new hardware I was talking about. It looks good. It's got a champagne finish on it, and I think it looks awesome. Once I get the hardware on, put the drawers in, time to decorate. Remember what that old dresser looked like? Well, guess what? Here's the new one right here. And it looks absolutely amazing. I love the decor and how it turned out. It looks really great under the window, and my wife decorated it, make it look really nice. And I love how this tabletop turned out. I think this dresser turned out great, and don't be afraid to do your own upcycle someday.
I found these beautiful chairs on the curb for free and loaded them into my car for my next project. First, I removed the seat cushions and gave them both a good clean. Then using a sanding block, I lightly sanded all the surfaces just enough to remove the glossy finish. Next, I placed the chairs side by side with a 12-inch gap. I cut a couple of 2x4s, made pocket holes on either ends, and connected the 2 chairs together. Then I measured the total length of the seating area and cut 3/4 inch thick pine boards to size. I needed 3 1/6 boards for this seat. I rounded the edges and sanded it smooth with 120 grit sandpaper. After wiping off the dust, I stained the wood with an outdoor grade stain in walnut shade. Next, I sprayed an even coat of white primer on the chairs. Once the primer dried, I applied multiple coats of this light beige paint that's good for both indoor and outdoor use. Once it was dry, I placed the wood seat on top and secured it by adding screws from underneath. And there you have it, a modern bench made from old chairs. Perfect to add a little charm to your front porch, cozy up your deck, or create a hangout spot in your yard.
I picked up these chairs on Marketplace and they're in bad shape. First thing I want to do is get rid of the webbing for the seats. I can either rip them off or use a knife to cut them, and they're easy to take off. Once I do cut them across the middle, I can just unravel them and they actually pop right out with these plastic pieces. Next, it was a mess, so I had to clean it off. A good squirt with the water hose on both of them will get all the cobwebs and everything off. Next, it's time to paint. Now, when using spray paint, I want to make sure I use a little bit of coat first, not too thick. I don't want any runs. It's easier to do 2 or 3 little coats than one big one with some runs. Once I get it all painted with a good quality paint, the next thing I went to a 1x3 board. This is a pine board, easy to cut. I measured it bigger than the seat that I wanted because what I'm going to do is place it across the seats from front to back with a little bit of spacing so that if it rains, the water will get through. Then I marked it and set my saw at a 2.5-degree bevel. Once it's marked, I'm going to cut it on the mark on each side to give it that slight bevel. Then when I got it on the seats, I'm going to mark them in the middle where the metal rod is. What I need to do is drill just a tiny little hole, not too deep, just a tad, just like that, get it sanded. And then what I'm going to do once it's sanded is it needs some staining, and best to use a high quality stain. Once I do this, I'm going to put it on a rag. I don't actually use a brush because I feel like using a towel gets a better penetration on the wood grain. If I put too much, I'm going to spread it out on another piece, but I will go back and wipe off any extra. I got to make sure I get all the way down the sides too and on the ends, and if it needs a second coat, do that. Once it's all stained, I'm going to set it on the chair and get it in the right position I want, and then I'm going to use what's called self-tapping screws. These have a little drill bit on the end. I will go through the little notch that I put on there with the drill bit, give it a drill, and then it eventually takes hold and goes on the seat. The reason I did the little notch is I want the head of the screw to sit inside the wood so it's not sticking up. That way when you sit on it, it doesn't cause any problems. Now, once I get all the screws in and everything that I need, watch this. This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looked like after. I think the transformation was amazing. I loved it. Don't throw that old furniture away because you can upcycle it.
Here's a super unique and easy way to flip a boring piece of furniture into something extra special. I'm removing the drawer and the knob, then giving the entire side table a light sanding with an orbital sander to remove the previous yellowed varnish. Next, I'm opening up a silicone mold that showcases different medallion shapes. I'm brushing on some cornstarch inside the molds, then filling each mold with air-dry clay. The cornstarch keeps the clay from sticking to the molds. Since I have the option, I'm filling all the medallion shapes with clay so I have a selection to choose from. To remove the clay, I'm tipping the mold upside down, then gently prying the clay out without pulling on it, then placing each medallion somewhere flat to dry. Before the clay is completely dry, I'm puncturing holes into the centers of the medallions using a small screw. After the clay is dry in about 2 to 3 days, I'm placing my chosen medallion on top of a small plastic cap for easier painting. Choosing a small black knob from my stash, I'm painting the medallion and knob so they match each other in a deep gray, then highlighting it with an off-white to give it an oxidized look. For the last step, I'm brushing on a very light touch of rub and buff in antique gold so the pieces have a tarnished metal look. I'm applying the rub and buff with a brush, lightly sweeping over the pieces and along the medallion edges. To install the new knobs, I'm inserting a screw from the inside of the drawer, then positioning the medallion in place first, then screwing on the knob semi-tight last. And the end result is a custom-made antique drawer pull that looks like it was found in a box of old hardware. The knob works great. It's as strong as ever, and both pieces truly resemble old metal that really gives the side table an upscale look. I love the new look of this piece. It's super pretty to use as a side table or even as a plant stand. I hope this inspires you to try making your own enhanced high-end knobs for an extra special furniture revamp of your own.
This ottoman was headed out to the curb. I decided to rescue it and give it a little makeover. This is made of microfiber, and you can paint microfiber. I picked up some white chalk paint, and I'm mixing it with a little bit of water, so it's really thin. Now I'm just using a big paintbrush to paint the fabric. Now that the paint is completely dry, I picked up two kinds of fabric. I have kind of a citrusy, colorful pattern on each one, and I'm going to cut 2-inch wide strips. To attach this fabric to the ottoman, I'm using a special Mod Podge made for fabric. To use this, I'm going to add a thin coat to the back of the strip of fabric and then press it onto the ottoman. I'm going to repeat this for each strip of fabric that I cut. And then I need to walk away for a couple hours and let that dry. Once dry, it's time to seal that fabric in. So I'm just going to use another coat of Mod Podge over the top of the fabric. Now I can use this in my living room. I've covered up the stained fabric, and I can use it as a footstool, an extra seat, or a decorative spot. I hope this inspired you to save a footstool or a fabric piece from your curb and dress it up with paint and Mod Podge.
I had this cute little console table, but I wanted to update it a bit. I wanted to add an arch to it. I had some old MDF board in the garage. I measured out a piece of MDF board that would cover the front of my console. Once I had the rectangular part figured out, I came down from the corners and decided how I wanted my arch to look. Once this was done, I cut it out using a little handsaw. Once that piece was done, I used it as a template to cut my second piece, the one that would go on the back of my console. This made it quicker so I didn't have to draw things over again. I cut that out as well, and now I had the front and back. For the side pieces, I just cut straight rectangles since I wanted that part to stay closed. So I started to attach it using liquid nails. Once I applied the liquid nails and attached the MDF board, I used clamps to hold it in place for several hours. Once that was dry and secure, the next step was to add joint compound. I had a few different size scrapers so that I could easily apply the joint compound around the console table. It goes on kind of like a thick icing. I used it to cover up the visible seams, and I did have to go back over these areas a second time to cover up the seam a bit more. I added the compound all along the front, the sides, and even on the inside since it would be visible at the end. Once it was completely dry overnight, I wiped it down just using a wet rag. Using the damp rag allowed me to kind of take off any imperfections or bumps without getting a lot of sand and dust everywhere. Now my arches look a little more matched and intentional. I hope this inspired you to create your own textured console table and have fun with the design.
A utility cart from IKEA is a great value and a great piece for storage. How about we give this classic gem a fabulous makeover? Pick your favorite peel and stick wallpaper pattern and let's get to measuring. Measure and cut a piece of wallpaper that is the same size as the mesh insert. Peel back the corner of your measured wallpaper and the rest of the backing will peel off easily. Apply to the center of the two cart shelves, leaving a white border around the paper. This will mimic the border of the mesh shelf. Use a debit card or gift card to smooth out wrinkles by pressing against the paper and pushing wrinkles away. Now take the side panels, measure and cut wallpaper to fit around the panels and apply. Miter the corners just like you would for a gift package or a sewing project. Follow this process for wallpapering each side piece of the cart shelves, as well as the connector pieces. Looking at your wallpaper color and pattern, pull an accent color from the pattern and spray paint the two side rail handles in that color. Follow the instructions that IKEA provides in the box and assemble all of the pieces of the cart. Poke a pen or screwdriver through the wallpaper and through the holes so that you can attach the pieces together with the screws. Pop on the wheels and you are ready to roll. Style this IKEA cart as a bar cart or a beverage cart with wine glasses and bottles. Or use it as a side table complete with a lamp, books, and plants. I hope this inspired you to give the classic IKEA utility cart a stylish makeover using peel and stick wallpaper.
I picked up a set of chairs off Facebook Marketplace. To begin, I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to go around the outside of the fabric. So I just have a spray bottle here with some water in it, and I'm going to begin to work in small sections, just spraying off some of the chair with the water. You just want it damp enough that the paint will soak in. For the upper portion of my chair, I just continue in the same process that I have been doing. When I am done painting, I'm going to remove the painter's tape, and I do this when the paint is still a little bit tacky. You don't want to wait till it's completely dry because you may peel off the paint.
I wrapped an iron in tinfoil for this brilliant furniture hat. I grabbed a side table from the thrift store and took it apart. I sanded it, wiped it clean, primed and painted. I painted 2 coats and then sanded and wiped clean between each coat. I added a clear top finish and then I put it all back together. I wrapped my iron in tinfoil to keep it clean and then I turned it on. Once it was heated, I ironed wood edge banding to the edges. I left a bit overhanging on either side and then I trimmed it with scissors. When all the edges were complete, I gently sanded the top edge and filed the corners to ensure a smooth finish.
I think you'll be amazed at what you can create using discarded furniture. I took some bamboo sticks, which I had purchased from Amazon, and I measured the length of the front of the drawer. I cut the bamboo sticks to this length, decided that I was going to remove and discard the top drawer. I removed the old doorknobs from the remaining drawers, and then I sanded them down lightly. I spaced out my bamboo sticks, and then I applied them, simply using liquid nails. I took the drawers and the cabinets outside, and I spray painted them. While I was outside, I also cut a thin piece of plywood so that it would replace where that top drawer was that I had removed. I simply slid this into place and continued painting the entire nightstand. I added new pulls, which I had purchased online as well.
I gave these golden oak chairs from the early 80s a complete makeover. I sanded all the wood clean before applying the barkeeper's friend. After a bit of trial and error, I figured out that the easiest way to cover all the wood was to mix the barkeeper's friend into a paste and paint it on. After letting them dry for several hours, I scraped off the dried paste before wiping the wood clean with a wet cloth. I used a clear, water-based sealer to protect the wood. Replacing the cane was a little tricky. The seats also got a new look with new foam and new fabric.
Can't beat the price of free, so let's give this stool new life. I'm going to begin by sanding off just the top part of the stool. I want to leave this down to the bare wood, and I painted the legs and the spindles on the stool, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it just a little bit of shine with this gold wax from Country Chic Paint. Then I took this Magnolia Garden Transfer from Dixie Belle Paint, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply this to the top part of my stool. I'm going to come in with this tough coat from Country Chic Paint just to seal it onto my design.
Grab a can of black spray paint and a roll of rattan webbing. Grab one of those outdoor folding metal tables. Clean it up with cut some paper and tape to the table so only the frame shows. Give the frame a fresh coat of black spray paint and let it dry completely. Outline the top of the table onto the rattan webbing with a Sharpie. Cut out the circle with some sharp scissors. Spray one side of the rattan with some spray adhesive. Spray the top of the table and let it sit for a few seconds until the surface is tacky. Place and press the sticky side of the rattan circle onto the top of the table. Place some heavy books on top of the rattan. Use some sharp scissors to trim the excess rattan from the circle.
Wait until you see what I turned this bucket into. First, I grabbed a multi-tool to cut the edges of the bucket off to make the bucket smooth. Next, I grabbed 5/8 inch wood half rounds and I cut them the length of the bucket. I used 220 grit sandpaper to hand sand the edges and front surface of all the half rounds. I secured the half rounds to the bucket using construction adhesive. For the first one, I checked it for level. Since the bucket is sloped, the half rounds each touched at the top, but were slightly separated at the bottom. I checked every so often to make sure that they were level and they weren't getting too far off. I went all the way around the bucket. I used a wood rasp to narrow down the last one and then I glued it on. I placed 2 rubber bands around the bucket, one at the top and one at the bottom to hold it while drying, and I let the glue set for 12 hours. I added paintable caulking between each wood dowel to make the gaps completely smooth. I wet my finger to smooth out the caulking between each crack. After that dried, I applied primer, let it dry, and then painted it with 2 coats of green paint. For the next part, I used a piece of MDF. I hammered a nail into the center on the back side, and I traced a circle approximately 20 inches in diameter using a string and pencil. I used the jigsaw to cut the circle out, cutting with the bottom side up. I sanded the top and edges and primed it and painted it green to match the other piece. I used a foam roller for painting for a nice smooth finish. And then I used construction adhesive to glue the top onto the bottom part, and I let it dry and added a 3rd coat of paint on the top part only. And that's how I turned a bucket into a beautiful fluted side table. I hope this inspires you to get creative with buckets and see what type of side table you can create.
You're going to want to load up on some cheap dollar store hula hoops this summer after you see this fabulous entertaining hack. I'm laying down 6 21-inch hula hoops on some butcher block paper. Each hoop is getting spray painted in black. I applied several coats to ensure all areas were well covered. Since these hula hoops were covered in some kind of decorative tape, it required a little extra paint to cover the pattern, but it worked out great. I'm going to join 4 hoops to the first hoop, attaching evenly on all 4 sides. I'm attaching the first hoop loosely with a black zip tie, also from the dollar store. 3 more hula hoops are being attached to the first hula hoop, creating an even pattern of 5. A 6th hula hoop is being placed on top of an exterior hula hoop and attached with a zip tie on its left side only. Each hula hoop on each side is being positioned vertically, then attached to the top hoop to create a cube shape. Each zip tie is being trimmed off with scissors to clean the ends up. I'm attaching some lightweight twine to one side of the top hula hoop with double knots. Leaving the roll intact, I'm stringing the twine across the top hula hoop in random places to create a spiderweb effect. The twine is being wrapped twice around the hoop with each stop for added strength. Keeping the twine as tight as possible is the key. To end the twine, I'm leaving lots of extra twine before cutting it off the roll, then knotting and trimming the ends. Now I'm positioning the wood round onto the twine. And you now have yourself a stylish and affordable outdoor table that's lightweight enough to carry wherever you wish. Since it's weather resistant, this little outdoor table is perfect for a porch, patio, or even a lawn party. And who even knew hula hoops could look this chic? You'll want to pick up a pizza pan from the Dollar Tree and a few wooden hangers from Walmart. Using a hacksaw outfitted with a metal blade, I'm scoring the metal hanger part close to the wood, then snapping it right off. Now I'm removing the wooden bars along the bottom of the hangers by simply pulling on them, then prying them completely apart using a screwdriver. To join the hangers together, I'm using 4 small metal L brackets. I'm positioning a bracket off-center to the middle of the hanger with the L shape facing inwards. Because I don't want the wood to split, I'm drilling the start of a pilot hole with a very small drill bit, keeping the hole quite shallow. Now I'm positioning the bracket in place and screwing it to the hanger by using short drill pumps. Next, I'm joining 2 hangers together with another L bracket. Now I'm joining them together as one. I'm flipping the hangers over so the tips are sitting on the table. This time I'm attaching all the new brackets to the other half of the hanger tops so I don't run into the previous screws. Next, I'm penciling in pilot holes, drilling, then attaching another L bracket positioned so the part sticking up can connect to another hanger. Positioning them together, I'm attaching the hanger sets to each other. Since there's some play in the legs, I'm slightly adjusting them to accommodate a pizza pan on top. Removing the pan, I'm pre-drilling pilot holes into all 4 hanger tops. Now the pan is being placed on top of the legs, matching pan holes to the drilled leg holes, then attaching them together with screws. And the result is a super versatile piece that doubles either as a plant stand or side table or whatever you wish. The metal top gives the piece an industrial vibe, which meshes so well with the wooden hanger legs. I hope this inspires you to repurpose a few affordable wooden hangers and a pizza pan in a fun and creative way of your own.
For today's project, we're going to head down to our local nursery and pick up some paver edges. We're going to need 4 of them to start with this project, but we're going to lay out 2 to begin with. Now, on these pavers, we need to make sure to see what kind we get. Some of them have an edge on them, and others are concave. Whatever side you choose though, make sure they both match when you're putting them together. Next, we got to make sure we adhere them with some good liquid nails. What we do is when we get it, Go ahead and squeeze out a little glue to make sure it's working, and then it's back to the pavers. Now we want to put a liberal amount on both sides. Don't go easy on this. The more you put, the better, because the pavers are very rough and that glue is going to fill the inside. Once we do it, we're going to turn it up on its edge and we're going to stick two of the pavers together, making sure they match. The weight from the pavers themselves will help out and hold it together. You also might get some glue that squeezes out, but that's okay. You're just going to take a popsicle stick and you can just clean those off. If you use a towel, it's probably going to smear it all over and it's not going to look good on that rough surface. Once you get those two together and you let it dry a couple hours, you can lay it flat. We're then going to grab our third paver and we're going to put another bead of glue on top. Make sure you put plenty on there because it's going to squeeze through on that rough surface. Once you do that, you're going to put it right down the middle of the two pavers that you did. You want to make sure you also line it up as you're tilting it over, because if you get glue on the paver, it's hard to clean up. So once you get that on and let that dry, turn those three over again. Make sure you're giving a couple hours so it holds together. And we're going to again put some glue on the edge of that paver and put it in place. As you can see, I'm forming a cross with these pavers with the same edges pointing towards the same sides. That's very key. Now we got the top of our project right here. This one's bigger than the pavers and it looks good. Once it's all glued up, I'm going to take it outside, set it up, and I'm going to run a bead of glue down each edge on top. And then I'm going to take my top paver, put it on top right there. Just the weight alone from that paper will hold it in place. I'm going to set a chair out and look at this. Absolutely looks amazing. It's a place that can hold your drinks while you're sitting outside. But if that's not good enough for you, I got another secret. It's actually going to be strong enough to hold a potted plant. And the great thing about this is it's waterproof. It's made of concrete and it's outside. And if you ever feel inspired, you can also paint these papers if you want, choosing your favorite color. I hope this inspired you to take your project from paver to furniture and give it a try.
Pick up some hardware cloth and river rock to create this super unique idea. While wearing safety gloves, I'm rolling out some 1/4-inch hardware cloth, then marking a height of 22 inches with a clothespin. Now I'm measuring the length of the plate, tripling that number to 39 inches. Using wire snips, I'm cutting the hardware cloth along the two measurements, then rolling up the cut wire into a tube shape. Now I'm using zip ties to join the tube shape together permanently. I'm placing them at each end and along the center of the tube, then trimming off the excess. With the tube now standing straight up, I'm placing a cut mesh square on top of the opening. Now I'm using the wires to attach the sheet to the tube. Now I'm trimming down the sheet to the shape of the tube, then using the wire snips to bend the cut wires slightly downward for safety reasons. I'm now gathering some clean river rock from a nearby flower bed, choosing the largest rocks I can find. Turning the wire tube open side up, I'm filling it about 1/4 ways up with the rocks to create a substantial base. For a final touch, I'm positioning the plate on top to close off the tube, which leaves you with a super cool, nature-inspired side table that can display anything you wish. I love the rustic industrial vibe the river rock and wooden plate took on. However, you can also dress it up with white decorative rock, teamed up with a sleek black plate on top. The best part is you get to choose your look. This unique side table is a fun way to bring the outdoors in with your decorating while displaying nature's best. And the plastic plate is also waterproof, which is perfect for serving up your favorite beverages indoors or out.
For today's project, we're going to head down to our local Michael's. There we're going to grab 4 wood crates. The first part of this project is putting on some stain. You can choose to do paint, but stain is such a wonderful coating for raw wood, just like these crates. Make sure when you're putting the stain on, not to put it too thick and get all the sides. Once you got it put on, take a towel or a rag and wipe off the excess. It brings out the wonderful color. We need to have this done to 4 of these crates. Look how beautiful they are. Now, here's where we start setting it up. We want to use glue because glue is so strong when it dries. We're going to take 2 crates. The first one is going to lay down on its top, just like this, and it's going to be upside down. We're going to take the glue and put it halfway down the crate. Once we get the glue on, we want to spread it though. This is non-toxic. It's not a big deal just to use your finger and spread it out. You don't want to leave it in just a line. Leave the glue also away from the edges so it doesn't spill over when you put the other crate on. Take that first one and lay it right on top of the one that you put the glue on. Line it up right on the edge, just like this. Once you get it, you can use screws, or I use little tiny 1-inch brad nails to hold it in place. You're going to want to do these to the other two that you have left over. These are going to form two L shapes. Get this put on, and again, use the brad nails and put them in place. Now, once those are drying, we're going to take little strips of wood. I use little Jenga pieces. I use 2 on this side and 2 on the other. We're going to set those down from the top of the crate and glue those on just right there along the edge. That makes it a great straight line. Now it's time to join the 2 L's together. So you're going to take the top part of this L and lay out the glue. Again, you want to make sure you do spread it around, keeping it away from right where the edges are. You can see the faint lines that I put that marked out where the crate was going to sit. Take the 2 halves with the glued on the bottom, and you're going to join them together. Line them up, and you're going to barely brad nail those in or use a screw gun to put them in. Now it's time to make the legs 6 inches long, and I'm going to use 2x2 pieces of wood. But I've got a drill in the middle. I didn't want to just use regular screws, so I take a level or a ruler and you mark right across the edges on the corners there, and that gets you the perfect center. I'm going to use a drill bit with a 1/4-inch drill and drill all the way through down about 2 or 3 inches. Clear out any of the sawdust. You don't want any debris left inside. Now, this is called an insert right here. It's a 1/4-inch insert. Just use an Allen wrench and you're going to start getting it ready to put on in. It's a little difficult in the beginning, but once you get it, it goes in. Once you get it tight to the top, then stain it and it's going to look great. On the bottom of our new table, we're going to drill out the 1/4-inch drill bit. Just put it right there, and then we'll take the bolt and we're going to put it through, and it's dark so it matches our stain, and then start screwing onto the leg. That makes these legs removable if you need to. Just go ahead and get it tight. Remember where we put the Jenga pieces in? We're going to drop a piece of wood there and decorate our table. And it just turned out amazing. You can make this any way you want. It's your project, and make it just absolutely beautiful. I think this project turned out great, and I hope that inspired you to make your own DIY wood crate coffee table.
Start with 4 foam wreath rounds from Dollar Tree and paint them white with chalk paint or spray paint. Glue 3 of the foam wreath rounds together with hot glue. Take stone spray paint and cover a stack of 3 and a stack of 2 foam rounds. Take 2 wood hoops and 1 metal hoop. Spray paint them white. Then use the stone spray paint after. Take a pizza pan and paint it white. Let it dry. Then use the stone spray paint after. Attach the hoops together with hot glue to create a 3D sphere. Use wood beads and hot glue them to secure the attachment to the foam rounds. Place the sphere on the foam stack. Cut 2 crevices in the foam to place the metal hoop. Then secure with hot glue. Place the 2 leftover foam rounds on the back of the pizza pan and secure with hot glue. Use rope and hot glue to reinforce the placement of hoops around the circumference of the circle. There you have it, an inexpensive way to create your own modern faux stone side table for your home. I hope this inspired you to try this DIY decor project. Thank you for watching Home Talk, and see you next time.
Stone side tables are definitely beautiful, but they're typically very expensive. We can get around that with this little DIY trick. I grabbed 3 pieces of terrazzo stone. I added glue to one side and then put 2 pieces together in a T shape. After that, I added more liquid adhesive to the top and then added the top piece right on top of the T to create the top of my table. I made sure to face all the prettiest sides of the stone toward me so that I could see it when using my piece. I let the glue dry for several hours so that it would be nice and firm, and then put my table into place, decorated it, and was able to enjoy it right away. I think you'll be amazed at what you can create using discarded furniture, I took some bamboo sticks, which I had purchased from Amazon, and I measured the length of the front of the drawer. I cut the bamboo sticks to this length, decided that I was going to remove and discard the top drawer. I removed the old doorknobs from the remaining drawers, and then I sanded them down lightly. I spaced out my bamboo sticks, and then I applied them, simply using liquid nails. I took the drawers and the cabinets outside, and I spray painted them. While I was outside, I also cut a thin piece of plywood so that it would replace where that top drawer was that I had removed. I simply slid this into place and continued painting the entire nightstand. I added new pulls, which I had purchased online as well. It was a really quick and easy project to do, and I love my new fluted nightstand.
Grab the brightest paints you have and use them to create a one-of-a-kind piece. I've gone ahead and given it a good cleaning. I'm using chalk paint because I know it will adhere to whatever paint is already on this piece. Just putting on blocks of paint where I think I'd like that color to be when I'm done. Now that I have all of my blocks done, I want to give it a spritz of water. Keeping the paints nice and wet helps to blend them really easily together. And I'm going to keep switching paint brushes because I want to try and blend only the two colors that are next to each other. While the front is drying, I'm going to go ahead and paint the other sides with the bright pink color. To finish the piece off, I'm going to just dry brush on a little more color. This little wardrobe certainly is bright and cheery now. It's fit for anyone who loves a vibrant pop of color. I grabbed a can of regular oven cleaner and I'm going to start by spraying the entire piece generously. After leaving the oven cleaner on this piece for about a half an hour, using a stiff bristle brush, I'm going to start scrubbing. I can already see the oven cleaner is working to remove the stain. To get the remaining oven cleaner off, I'm going to give it a quick rinse with the hose and then leave it to dry out in the sun. I want to do another round of oven cleaner though to remove the stain from the underside and a few little areas that I missed the first time. Now that the wood is completely dry, I want to finish up with a quick sanding of the wood. I can't believe how wonderful this piece turned out using the oven cleaner hack.
I'm going to give this old chair a makeover. I've cleaned it really well, and when it's dry I'll give it a light sanding, and then I'm going to give it 2 coats of primer. So I'm laying down quite a thin layer of the varnish, making sure that the seat is covered. I'm working in 2 halves here, and then using the spray bottle, spray the back of the paper. So using the scrunched up piece of plastic wrap, start in the center and work your way out, smoothing the paper as you go. Then when you've done that half, do the same thing on the other side. When it's all completely dry, use a very sharp knife to remove any excess paper. I'm going to use a spray varnish first, and then when that's dry, I gave it 3 coats of a water-based varnish. Here's my chair. I actually decided to do the backrest as well. I'm really happy with how this has turned out.
Found this beat up table at the thrift store last week and it's quite damaged. I'm going to start by painting my table white. I'm going to add all kinds of bright colored paint into my container, and I'm going to add some texture into the paint, and I'm going to use the Fusion Fresco powder, but you could use baking soda and mix it into each of those colors. I'm going to start putting it over the stencil, and we want to start just spreading this all over, and I'm going to hold down the stencil as much as possible here. Okay, and once you have your stencil completely covered like this, you want to very gently try and take off a little bit off of the top. We can peel up that stencil. How gorgeous is that? Who would have thought that you could turn a $7 thrift store find into this beautiful piece of art with just a stencil and some paint? I'm going to give the surface of the cabinet a quick sanding. I'm going to paint the cabinet with some creamy white chalk paint. I'm going to brush on a layer of decoupage glue and then lay on my paper. So I'm going to use my hands to flatten it out. I want to slice off the rest of the paper and want to give it one final coat of the decoupage glue. I can use a sanding block to gently take off any excess. I want to also remove the paper from those. I'm going to finish it all off with a coat of wax. My filing cabinet looks incredible now.
I've got this old glass table. Get it all cleaned up. I'm going to tape around all of the edges. Next, we're going to do that 2-part epoxy. We're going to pour it halfway down the table. Next, we're going to mix a little bit of teal. We're going to pour it out. We're going to go with a darker green. And you're going to start spreading out that white. Start getting rid of all that flaky paint. Start spraying it with some good spray paint. It was time to put on the darkest color we have. Put some more waves on and spread it all out. What a wonderful addition to the back porch.
To get the table ready, I'm going to start by giving it a quick clean. Next, I want to give it a light sanding. I want to wipe it again. I like to start with the pedestal first and then do the top. I'm going to add and combine some water with some white paint. To apply the wash, I'm going to use this chip brush because the bristles are natural and uneven. To soften up those lines a little bit, I can wipe them with just a damp paper towel. I absolutely love how pretty this table is now and how much the lighter color changes its look. I found this fun shower curtain. I'm going to start by painting the table. Use a utility knife and run it along the edge. I want to seal the paint to protect it. Put a layer of Mod Podge all over the glass, and now I'm going to lay the shower curtain onto it. I want to trim off the excess, add one more layer of Mod Podge over the top for added protection. This little table is so cute now, perfect for sunny days on the balcony.
Head down to the local hardware store and choose some of the inexpensive whiteboards. I brought the table outside and set it up. All I had to do was take the 1x6s and lay them out. First thing I want to do is measure the board for some of my cross beams. I'm going to cut those a little bit short using my miter saw, and then I'm going to mark out where I'm going to place the boards because I need to lay some good wood glue down. Then I'm going to take my cross board and use finish nails to put it in, and it's time to put the side pieces on. I'm going to use some 1x3s with miter joints. We're going to put the glue on there and use the nails to put it in place. I'm going to go ahead and use some wood putty, sanded the whole table down, and it was time for staining. And I go ahead and do the whole table, clear polyurethane. Go ahead and put the new wood table down on top, and it turned out beautiful.
I'm giving this little side table a makeover. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually give it a coat of black paint. Now I've taken some creamy white paint and I've added water to it. I've ripped up some newspaper and I'm going to apply some of this paint. Taking pieces of the scrunched up paper, I press it into the paint and wiggle it around. Keep repeating the process until you get to the end. Now the tabletop is dry, I'm going to use this stencil. I'm going to give it 2 coats of this gloss decorator's varnish. Here's my finished tabletop. I think it looks quite effective. It's a very easy technique to do. I've drawn a line straight down the middle of the drawers and I'm going to use a red and a blue paint. When the first colour has dried, I then take the other colour and paint on top of it. Then take your spray bottle and spritz over the wet paint and then set a timer for 3 minutes. When the time is up, we have to start removing the water now. And I use a toilet roll. Now I'm moving on to the top of the dresser and I've split the top in half. Now all my drawers are done and dry and I'm taking a stencil and some modelling paste and applying it to the stencil. I finished off the dresser by doing the stencil again on the top and here it is. I hope you enjoyed this and you're inspired to have a go at this crazy technique. I'm going to apply both these colours, the green and the blue, randomly over the top. I'm now going to apply 1 coat of a water-based top coat. I've used some cardboard and I'm just going to cut 1 edge, cutting very randomly on the bottom, grooves in it. In here I have some dark green paint and I've combined it with their water-based top coat. I apply the green paint on top and then taking my cardboard, going to randomly scrape into it, okay? So then we go on to the next bit, working just randomly, but I decided to follow some of the contours with a metallic gold gel pen. And here's my finished table. I actually decided to paint the edges gold to tie in the gold that I had done on the top.
I grabbed a can of regular oven cleaner and I'm going to start by spraying the entire piece generously. After leaving the oven cleaner on this piece for about a half an hour, using a stiff bristle brush, I'm going to start scrubbing. I can already see the oven cleaner is working to remove the stain. To get the remaining oven cleaner off, I'm going to give it a quick rinse with the hose and then leave it to dry out in the sun. I want to do another round of oven cleaner though to remove the stain from the underside and a few little areas that I missed the first time. Now that the wood is completely dry, I want to finish up with a quick sanding of the wood.
I gave these golden oak chairs from the early 80s a complete makeover. I sanded all the wood clean before applying the barkeeper's friend. After a bit of trial and error, I figured out that the easiest way to cover all the wood was to mix the barkeeper's friend into a paste and paint it on. After letting them dry for several hours, I scraped off the dried paste before wiping the wood clean with a wet cloth. I used a clear water-based sealer to protect the wood. Replacing the cane was a little tricky. The seats also got a new look with new foam and new fabric.
can't beat the price of free, so let's give this stool new life. I'm going to begin by sanding off just the top part of the stool. I want to leave this down to the bare wood, and I painted the legs and the spindles on the stool, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it just a little bit of shine with this gold wax from Country Chic Paint. Then I took this Magnolia Garden Transfer from Dixie Belle Paint, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply this to the top part of my stool. I'm going to come in with this tough coat from Country Chic Paint just to seal it onto my design. I picked up a set of chairs off Facebook Marketplace. To begin, I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to go around the outside of the fabric. So I just have a spray bottle here with some water in it, and I'm going to begin to work in small sections, just spraying off some of the chair with the water. You just want it damp enough that the paint will soak in. For the upper portion of my chair, I just continue in the same process that I've been doing. When I am done painting, I'm going to remove the painter's tape, and I do this when the paint is still a little bit tacky. You don't want to wait till it's completely dry because you may peel off the paint.
I found 6 chairs on Facebook Marketplace that were perfect for a makeover. I started by disassembling the seats of each chair. Because I was planning on painting the chairs, I first needed to give them a good sand. I applied 2 coats and let them dry for 24 hours. I first snipped the strings holding the buttons, and then got to work on removing the hundreds of staples to loosen the fabric. Once all the staples were out, I was able to remove the fabric and reveal the batting and the cushion. To cut costs, I'm using a heavy-duty drop cloth for my fabric. After washing and drying the cloth, I used the old cover as a pattern for my new upholstery. Once the covers were cut, I secured them to each of the seat cushions. The most important part of the step is pulling the fabric tight before stapling. This creates a clean, polished look. I then reattached the bottoms with 4 screws, and my chairs were done.
I took the table apart, separating the glass from the metal ring. Laid the glass on top of the picture. I mixed 2 parts white glue to 1 part black craft paint. I outlined the sun. And once the lines had dried, I cleaned up any lines that were too thick by cutting them away using a utility knife. I painted the background using a 1-inch wide brush. I added designs to each panel. I gave the paint 2 coats of spray sealant. I used a medium grit sanding sponge. I painted the metal bright blue.
I found this gorgeous vintage chair at my local thrift store, but I wasn't a fan of the seat cushion. Instead of just recovering it with fabric, I wanted to try something a little more creative. First, I flipped the chair over and used a flathead screwdriver to remove the screws holding the cushion in place. With the cushion gone, it was time to get weaving. One by one, I looped the belts across the frame, weaving them together in a crisscross lattice pattern, pulling each one tight as I went. Once that the frame was fully covered, I trimmed the extra strap ends with scissors. The result? A super sturdy, surprisingly comfortable, Newt seat with tons of personality. It's such a unique twist on a traditional chair makeover, practical, stylish, and totally one of a kind. Would you try this flip on a chair of your own?